You know, choices are made by everybody when a story is placed somewhere, what picture goes with it, what headline. You know, I learned that in journalism, that there is no objectivity. I had an editor who used to always run a really horrible picture of this one person in the community because he hated him. Back when I was when I started out as a reporter at the Philadelphia Gay News. And so every time I wrote a story about this guy, this horrible picture would run. And one day I said to him, wait a minute, can't we get a new picture of this guy? And my editor turned to me and said, oh, I hate him. We're never going to run another picture of the guy. So objectivity, come on. Fair and balanced, yes. Objective, no. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. Believe nothing. What was that thing about the X-Files? The truth is out there? Well, you know what? Sometimes the truth is out there, but it's buried. It's buried so deep. Or maybe it's even on Mars or Jupiter, so you have to take a space flight to get to it. But you know what? If you're going to be a journalist in the old sense of the word, not the new corporate sense, but the old sense of the word, you're going to get to Jupiter by any means necessary to dig up that truth.
Anybody else?
I think this, not to be dramatic, but I think this is life and death stuff. And, you know, by that I mean the gay press itself, you know, has a certain impact, but to the extent these, and I believe with Tommy that it takes activists and people being in people's faces and demonstrating and acting, but also to the extent that these stories pierce through into the mainstream media, they affect people's lives. You know, I think of that, there's a story in Harvey Milk's life where a kid from Altoona writes him, and he's thinking about committing suicide, and he reads this story about this gay man, this politician, and after Milk gets elected, he says he's going to take a bus out to San Francisco. You know, when people hear stories, it changes their minds about people. When Diane Whipple was murdered and Sharon Smith went to Sacramento, Republicans who otherwise would have hated queer people showed sympathy towards her because they heard her story. So I'm appealing to people not just in the queer press but outside it to tell, as Tommy suggests and others, to pierce through and tell these stories so people have to see them and encounter people as they really are.
I thank the panel very much, and before I close this out, I'd like to thank Alan White, who did a magnificent job bringing us all together. He moved mountains to get one of the largest panels that's ever been at the Commonwealth Club, and it worked, and it really worked. He was exactly right. We needed all the voices we heard, and I'm really happy about that. I want to thank some of my own mentors, Jeffrey Krause, who founded the Hofstra University radio station, one of the best college radio stations in the country, which now fosters a communication center, which is on the campus of that place where you'll be watching the third presidential debate. I want to thank Randy Covington, who taught me a lot about journalism at a rock and roll radio station in Houston, Texas, the last place you would expect to hear about it. I'd like to thank the late Bob Ross, who founded one of the best gay newspapers in the country and stuck to his guns. Bob could be temperamental, sometimes irascible, but over the years he really put more and more resources into hiring the kind of people like Cynthia Laird, Mike Salinas, myself, and others who made the gay press something you could actually look to and say, yeah, we could count on them for something. And I want to just have people remember that there are people who come before you that you may or may not remember who laid the groundwork for what you're trying to do. Go back and look at some of the pioneers. I remember mine. And finally, I remember my late uncle, Bill Lamble, who was a Marine Corps journalist. He was an immigrant from Liverpool, and he wound up as a copy editor at the New York Times. And that was probably my inspiration for doing the sort of things I've been doing for the last 40 years. I want to say, and now this program of the Commonwealth Club of California, celebrating its 105th year of enlightened discussion, is over.
On the radio,